Good morning. My name is Michelle Davis, and I head up the Clean Energy and Sustainability team at Eversheds, which is an international law firm but particularly focused on Pakistan. I'm delighted that we have managed to find a slot to focus on Pakistan, and that Mr. Amjad Ali Awan, who is the CEO of the AEDB in Pakistan, has kindly given up his time to be here as well. We, together with the IFC and Messiah, Imtiaz was just on the previous panel, have been working with Amjad and his colleagues in NEPRA on the renewable energy programme, and we can talk a bit more about that when we come to questions with Amjad. Amjad is going to give a very short presentation, and then we will have some questions. We don't have a huge amount of time, and so can I ask you, please, if you do have a question, to say your name and where you are from, and please keep it as concise as possible so that we can fit everybody in. Amjad, would you like to make your presentation? Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here with us. It's a pleasure for me to talk something about renewable energy of Pakistan. And let me tell you that renewable energy for us, for Pakistan, is not only important from the sustainability point of view, but it is our key competitive advantage. Competitive advantage because there's a low opportunity cost for these technologies in Pakistan. And it makes economic sense because a lot of energy resources, especially the oil and petroleum resources, we import, and the import bill annually surpasses 15.8 billion US dollars. So these technologies, these resources are mainly indigenous, so it makes sense that these should be part of Pakistan's energy policy and energy structure. Secondly, these are the resources where there is a potential to decentralize these resources, and we can have off-grid solutions in solar and wind, etc. And these are the only technologies which can actually gain the benefit in Pakistan. So in order to give you a snapshot of what we have and how the renewable energy sector in Pakistan is evolving and how it can be a stimulus for the international market for investment response. So I will give you a brief snapshot of this. Change first. It's not moving. Yes. This is the picture of solar energy in Pakistan, and you see that average solar radiation in Pakistan is around 5.5 to 6 kilowatt hours per meter square per day, and it can even reach to 7.5 kilowatt hours per meter square per day in some areas in Balochistan in this. So whole the Pakistan, you see, the solar irradiance is enough. And later on, I will tell you that when we mapped it through satellite and land-based data stations, what's the result? This is the map of the wind energy resources in Pakistan. You see the brown shades from the northern to southern side of Pakistan. These are the different wind corridors in Pakistan, and the potential is immense, especially in the southern side of Pakistan. Near province of Sindh, we have 9,700 square kilometer breadth of wind corridor, where the potential, realizable potential surpasses 35,000 to 40,000 megawatt. And especially in southern part, Balochistan area and northern areas, the wind corridors are immense. So what are the results when data was collected from satellite resources? So this is the amazing potential of these resources. 2.9 million megawatt theoretical, and in solar, waste to energy, hydro, and wind around 340,000 megawatt. So this is the potential we need to transform into concrete projects, and this data is based upon the analysis of NREL, and now SMAP, World Bank is involved to get land-based mapping of the resources, and that will be finished by the June. Solar data stations are already working, and by the June of 2016, all wind masts will be functional. So the salient features of energy policy in Pakistan. We have distinct features. For example, our policy is not only the wishful thinking, it clearly spells out the role of different stakeholders in Pakistan. We have regulator, we have power purchaser, and we have developer. So everything is mentioned in terms of timelines. There's no problem in this. The procedures and project cycle is very clear, and there's a generous scheme of fiscal and financial incentives that we offer, which are hardly you find parallel in the world, that we offer for the investors. The net metering, the distributed generation, this policy amply covers this. And there's a mandatory purchase of electricity by the power purchaser. And in any case, whatever the feed-in tariff is, we ensure the return of our equity around 17 to 18%. And there is a sovereign guarantee. This is a unique feature, again, in Pakistan, that government actually gives you sovereign guarantee against the performance of purchaser and other things. So you will be insulated against all the technical and financial risk. And the facilitation is provided by AEDB. Alternative Energy Development Board in Pakistan is a one-window operation. Again, the standard bankable project agreements. We have standard EPA, we have standard IA, and based upon those project agreements, many projects have achieved financial close and have achieved commercial operation date in the wind and solar side. We have a banking of electricity facility, we have wheeling provisions in the policy, and the carbon credits are also allowed. These are the fiscal incentives I mentioned. It's a complete tax-free regime for the investors, no custom duty, no sales tax, and no turnaround, and repetition of equity is freely allowed, and permission to issue corporate registered bonds, and for non-Muslims and non-residents exempt from the payment of zakat, which is religious tax, and permission to issue shares at discounted prices. So these are the fiscal and financial incentives we provide. And this is a very clean process in which investors can be engaged. Submission of proposal, everything is mentioned in the policy, what you need to submit. Then review and acceptance of the proposal by AEDB. Then letter of interest will be issued by AEDB. Even the provinces can issue LOI as well. Then the feasibility study time, and you will be given 18 months to 20 months to finish feasibility study. Then tariff negotiations will be in the process with the NEPRA. And then Government of Pakistan will issue letter of support. And after letter of support, the next milestone will be financial close. And AEDB and other government organizations will be helping the investors and companies to achieve FC within the given deadlines. And then the achievement of COD. So based upon this cycle, we are practicing in Pakistan since the last 20 years. And so it's reliable, it's bankable. And recently, many projects, wind projects and solar projects also achieved COD, commercial operation date, based upon this. So these are some of the snapshots of the wind power generation projects in Pakistan, which are fully functional and operational right now. And this is the manufacturing facility we have created in Pakistan. All the wind towers, whatever the projects are, now being built inside Pakistan and inside the wind corridor. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Amjad. That was a very concise and quick summary as requested. That was fantastic. In addition to the abundant resource that Pakistan clearly has for these very core mature technologies, I mean, I know you're focusing on biomass and other technologies, but wind and solar. What would you say are the key drivers for those people in the room unfamiliar with Pakistan for your renewable energy policy?
I think that's a very important question you asked. There may be different drivers, but in Pakistan, when we are dealing with energy policy, we are actually looking into resources, renewable energy resources, in all the chemistry and jigsaw of overall energy policy and structure of the power sector in Pakistan. The key drivers are, first of all, we are trying to see the options. A macro view of options is very important. And in that macro view, you see the competing options of different technologies. This is the key driver, and the different factors work on this. For example, we choose certain technology based upon whether it makes economic sense or not. And we take in mind the immediacy as well. We see the sector performance, but in overall, we look upon macro view of the different options which compete, and then we go for certain option. That's a key driver. And secondly, we just want to win advantage in the changing circumstances. We know we are living in the age of COP21, and there is a huge emphasis on renewable energy resources, on carbon crunch, and these things. So Pakistan wants to win advantage in this changing dynamics. And third, which is the key factor, as I mentioned, that renewable energy is actually a key competitive advantage in Pakistan. Even in 1960s and 70s, in 80s, 60% of Pakistan resources were based upon hydropower resources. So slowly and gradually, thermal got an edge, and today we just want to regain that thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Amjad. And I know that people can feed questions through to me here. I'm not the most IT literate person, but I will give it a go. We have experienced this personally from working with you because we've been working with you for almost a year now. So we know the level of engagement that you at AEDB and you in particular, Amjad, personally, and your colleagues at NEPRA have with the industry as a whole. But can you maybe shed some light, again, for those for whom Pakistan may be a new focus, on how you've actually engaged with the international investment community and responded to their concerns?
Pakistan has actually an edge upon other things in terms of renewable energy because, first of all, let me tell you that the macroeconomic parameters right now support Pakistan. If you see the current scenario, Pakistan is getting out of the economic difficulties right now. The World Bank has forecasted that for the next year, the economy will go at 4.8% from the 4.4%. And this is the way CPI inflation rate has reduced to half from 8 to 4%. And we see the current account deficit has been reduced from 3.1 to 2.6 around. So these indicators show, and you see around the remittances in Pakistan are recorded at this time. 18.7 billion US dollars is a record of foreign remittances. That shows the balance, economic balance in Pakistan. So that's the key advantage. Secondly, the IPP sector or private power sector is very much mature in Pakistan. Since last 1994, we are practicing these policies. And whenever we engaged private sector, then there emerged a success story. In 1994, there was an energy crisis, and with the participation of the private sector, it was completely eliminated. And thirdly, Pakistan is not only working on the projects, Pakistan is working to create enabling environment. For example, the mapping of these resources, the standardization of these things, the provision of net metering. So we have a thorough approach towards engaging investors in this sector. Rather, I talked to Arena last day that we can even help other countries because we are at the stage when we started so earlier. So Pakistan will be early harvest for the international investors if they engage in this sector right now. Thank you.
And Amjad, let's be clear, you published a fit for the second round of the solar projects and you held a public consultation. Many of those that are focusing on Pakistan responded to that. They attended a trade mission which was organized by MESI, IFC and ourselves. And you responded to that very favorably and set the feed-in tariff at a level that many believe they can now participate in. That's all fantastic. The growth in your GDP, also evidenced by the improvement in your credit rating. That's all sounds very encouraging. But we know that there are some key challenges in implementing a renewable energy program in Pakistan. What do you see as what does AEDB see as the key challenges and how are you going to overcome those?
Michelle, again, a very important question. I think we should also talk about the challenges that we face in this sector. There may be technical issues, but right now the most critical factor, the critical issue we are facing is the transmission line because the wind power projects particularly, I've shown you the map and resources are mainly located in the southern side of Pakistan. So these are site-specific projects, and we need special transmission lines to evacuate power from that area to the rest of the country. Fortunately, we have national grid in Pakistan. So laying new transmission line and building the capacity of the institutions is the key challenge right now because different private sector organizations are very happy in putting in their money in the generation side, but in transmission side, we need emphasis. And secondly, this is not only the problem with Pakistan, but every developing economy will face, when they reach at this level, will face these issues of evacuation power and lack of response from the investor market. So that's the key challenge. And second, we are trying to engage different stakeholders. Right now, KfW, right now, USAID, and different organizations are working, which are giving concessionary fundings for the laying the transmission lines. So we are managing these issues by ourselves. And secondly, the issue relating with the land. It was a big question mark because the land was a resource of the provinces, and Pakistan is a federation, everybody knows. But right now, the good thing is this, AEDB under its new management has recently signed contracts, the coordination agreements with the provinces in which they are bound to provide support, all kind of support in providing land to the investors. So now the stakeholder coordination is the new dimensions of power sector Pakistan, and we are engaging all the stakeholders, the provincial government, to facilitate the investors in this regard. These are the key challenges that I face. And third technical issue I would like to highlight, that intermittence is the issue. When you connect wind power with the grid, then grid stability issues come arise. But luckily, Pakistan has a wind corridor where there are ample amount of solar energy as well. So the chances of hybridization is very much. So when you create hybrid arrangements, then the stability issues and intermittence issues can be addressed with. So we are trying to manage these challenges with these solutions that I mentioned.
Thank you, Amjad. And I think that is, what you mentioned in terms of the collaboration and alignment with the provinces is differentiating you,
yes.
I think, in comparison to some other countries. Why then, if you have this, and you may have answered the question in part just a moment ago, but why then, with this great ambition for renewable energy and this great momentum that's behind it within the government to resolve the challenges and engage with international investors, which give the impression that 1 to 2 years' time we're going to be seeing significant success, why the focus on LNG and gas?
Yes, that's again a critical question. You see, and there's a background, there's a perspective behind. Pakistan is witnessing energy shortages, energy crisis, and that shortage around 4,000 to 5,000 megawatt. Now, 4,000, 5,000 megawatt shortfall, that means your base load has been disrupted. Base load has been disrupted because of this crisis. So the immediate solution, the immediate emphasis for Pakistan is to build base load technologies. Right now, that's why Pakistan is going for the coal and LNG, to build a substantial amount of base load, but that doesn't mean that renewable energy and these projects will not gain its ground. I suppose that right now only a fraction of amount comes from the solar and wind, but what we are aiming at is around by 2020, there will be 20 to 25% share that is assumed from the renewable energy resources. So this way we can create a balance, and simultaneously Pakistan's one of the bombastic potential is also in terms of hydro. We have 45 to 50,000 megawatt potential in the northern areas of Pakistan. In the meantime, Pakistan, because the gestation period of these technologies, hydro is high, so it will take 7 to 8 years. But in the next 10 years, the scenario will be altogether different. We assume that 45% of energy should come from the hydro and 25% from the wind and solar. So only small margin will be left for the carbon-intensive technologies. So this is a scenario we want to create.
It's actually encouraging, I would imagine, from an investment perspective, to see the amount of planning and strategy that you're putting into how your power market is going to look in 5 years' time, because even in my home country, the UK, which is quite a mature market, we have a little bit of a panic going on at the moment because all of this renewable energy is coming onto the grid, and the powers that be are having to resolve the problem through quite expensive storage at the moment. So it's good to see, I think, a government that is planning ahead and being very strategic. I want to go back to, though, Amjad, if I can, to the question about the provinces, because I know that many investors here will want to know more about how that is going to work, because if you're giving authority and power to provincial governments, and we had a number of those senior members of those governments at our event in London with IFC, I think about 6 months ago. So we could see the alignment, but people here will be concerned to understand how is that going to impact on your wider renewable energy policy? How will it work in practice?
As I mentioned, Pakistan is a federation, and it's a very liberal federation after the passing of the 18th Amendment, in which much of the powers was devolved into province, and we are also trying to build the capacity of the provinces as well. So power sector is also subdivided in provinces, and now the difference is that provinces can only issue letter of interest. Like federal government can issue letter of interest, and so is the case with the provinces. They can issue letter of interest to different sponsor, and they are bound to provide land to the sponsor. But later on, as you go on, you have to go to the federal government. For example, the seeking generation license from regulator, you had to knock the doors of federal government, and seeking access into national grid, you have to go. And fundamentally, most important thing, letter of support is the key milestone in the overall power chemistry. A letter of support is issued by AEDB, but nowadays, when provincial governments are involved, there is a scheme of tripartite LOS in which sponsor will be the party, provincial government will be the party, and AEDB, federal government, will be the party. So it is a tripartite LOS that will be signed and given to a sponsor. And most importantly, the sovereign guarantee will be given by the federal government itself. And I, as a CEO of AEDB, signs the implementation agreement on behalf of President of Pakistan. That actually ensures and gives you a sovereign guarantee against the performance of the other stakeholders. So that's the key thing. And then the EPA, and then the rest of all milestones rest with the federal government. Only the origination of the project, we have given chance to provinces, they can issue LOI. But it was a problem when there was no contractual relationship. Right now, provinces are contractually attached with the federal government throughout this scheme. And right now, there is no ambiguity and there is no disharmony with respect to federal and provincial governments.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Amjad. I think we have reached our time, but I am just going to ask one more question and see if the audience want to ask a couple of questions very quickly. My final question is, you referred to the climate change discussions in Paris. How much is Pakistan engaged with organizations like IRENA and others to deliver on its sustainability program? And also, are you now focusing as well on carbon finance, carbon credits, which will again be very interesting to the audience here?
Yeah. Carbon credits and carbon trade is a part of renewable energy policy of Pakistan, first of all, let me know. And 2-3 days before, I was with IRENA, and I advised them that now, after COP21, we should get out of the generic thing and we should focus on our targets. So I told them we had to be more specific and we had to be more targeted. This is the right time that IRENA should motivate the countries. They should set their targets. They should set their RPS, what we call renewable portfolio standards. For example, in Pakistan, when I say that in the next 4 or 5 years, 7 years, 20% of resources will be, of energy mix, electricity mix will be from the renewable energy. This is the target different countries can put forward in front of them. That will focus, put more focus on the COP21 agenda and things. So IRENA should focus specifically on the countries, motivate to profess their targets and how to achieve them. The most important thing is this: in developing countries, when we are trying to achieve some ground in renewable energy, there are policy issues, and different countries are facing policy hiccups. So there should be a strategy unit or policy unit inside IRENA, very active, and they should work on the different countries' policy dynamics and help them achieve their targets within the ambit of that. So that's the thing I wanted. And third most important thing, a lot of people have talked about the Millennium Development Goals and things like that. And I believe there should be Millennium Technology Goals as well. You should set the targets for the technology. Different gaps are there in these technologies. We have to fill these gaps as soon as possible. So there should be specific technology focus. These are the 3 things I suggested to IRENA, and I'm getting help and support from other organizations. And since last 1 year, I found a lot of impetus and encouragement from the donor agencies and international organizations. Thank you.
Well, is it okay if I just take a couple of questions from the audience? Because you've got some quite challenging questions here, Amjad. So this person hasn't given their name, and I understand why. Okay, here we go. The advisor to the Prime Minister on power seems to be stronger than the AEDB. I'm guessing more influential. Yeah. Why is decision-making so ad hoc and casual in Pakistan? And why is AEDB's role diminishing in the overall scenario in Pakistan?
Let me tell you that decision-making in Pakistan is systematic. And when policy, we announce and we this policy and put it in public, then I think everything is clear and everything is transparent in front of the people and the sponsor. But the question is, I know what's the purpose behind this question. I mean, it was asked that since last 3-4 months, we are not issuing fresh LOIs. But this is mainly because when you give authority to the provinces and they are incessantly issuing LOIs, and you don't know what is the capacity in your transmission infrastructure. In the last 4 or 5 months, a very important study was underway that was conducted by USAID regarding to see how much transmission potential is there, and so that we may issue further LOIs. So now, when that study is over and that provides ample cushion to the renewable energy, now the suspense is over. Recently we have sought approval for the issuance of new LOIs from our ministry. It's only the procedural things that when it was banned from the CCOE, Cabinet Committee on Energy, and right now that ban will be lifted from that side. So that's the only thing. Otherwise, Prime Minister's Secretariat has no formal load in terms of devising or issuing LOIs. Thank you.
Can I give you another difficult question,
Yeah,
Amjad? Some of the questions are answered in a guide, actually, that IFC have produced, which we have contributed to, on the Pakistan renewable energy market. If anybody would like that, let me know, or let some of my colleagues know who are sitting at the back, and we'll give you that, because we haven't got time to answer all of them. I'm just picking the more interesting questions for you. So how did Zonergy get allocation in the QA solar park, because their feasibility was submitted in March 2015, while their LOI was issued in May 2015?
It was Zonergy project was considered at a provincial level, and LOIs were given by the provincial government at that time. It has nothing to do. But when, for example, it was a project conceived for 1,000 megawatt, 100 megawatt was done by the federal government, and which is fully operational right now. The rest of 900, the first phase, rest of 900, the LOI was issued by the provincial government. But when the cases of first 300 came to us in federal government, we only helped the first 300 megawatt. Up to this time, the financial close has been achieved by the 300 megawatt, and 600 megawatt have not achieved financial close, and we are not entertaining that. Because in the meantime, we have changed the tariff, modified the tariff. So this is the way, and because we cannot stop issuing LOI by the provinces, so we entertained those things. But the 600 megawatt LOI that has been issued by the provincial government, we are not entertaining further due to technical things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amjad. Am I okay to continue, or do we need to finish now? So I'll just, one final question, and then we will finish. Is the net metering in Pakistan available to residential areas, or is it only applying to companies?
Yes. Let me tell you that distributed generation and net metering is one of the unique features of Pakistan's renewable energy policy. And recently, all sort of guidelines were issued and finalized by the NEPRA, and which are in public. NEPRA means National Electric Power Regulatory Authority, and these guidelines are out right now in public. Net metering will be available for all kind of sectors, for example, residential, the commercial, and industrial. And since last couple of months, we are conducting a roadmap study, and that roadmap study is being conducted by GIZ and other potential stakeholders. And based upon the results of those, we presume that a wide-scale marketing campaign is needed. That will be started from the February. And by the April of this year, net metering will be available in Pakistan for all kind of consumers, whether or not residential, commercial, and industrial. And this campaign that we are going to start will focus all these key consumer sectors, and will tell them that how net metering can be beneficial for them. Secondly, a part of the urban side, we are also focusing on the rural remote areas, and net metering provision will also be available in the rural sector. Thank you.
That's enormously helpful, Amjad. Thank you so much. And unfortunately, we have to come to the end of the session. There were a number of questions. I think most of them will be answered in the guide, so let me know if you would like a copy of that. All that remains is to thank Amjad for his contribution today, and please join me in the usual way. Thank you, Amjad.
Thank you very much.